What if I told you that sometimes your silence can speak louder than all the love you ever gave him? It sounds strange, doesn't it? You care, you show up, you give your time, your attention, your energy, and somehow he starts pulling away. So you stop reaching out, you become quiet, you stop trying to hold the connection together by yourself. And then, almost like clockwork, he appears again. But why does that happen? Why can distance create feelings that closeness could not? Why does your absence suddenly make him notice your value in a way your constant presence never seemed to? The answer is not magic, and it is not some secret trick. It is psychology, and it goes much deeper than the usual breakup advice you hear online. In this video, we're going to uncover what can happen inside a man's mind when you stop chasing him and start stepping back. Not the surface level advice, not the recycled lines, the real emotional patterns that can make your absence suddenly feel impossible to ignore. Because the moment you stop running after someone, the entire dynamic can change. You are no longer constantly available. You are no longer giving him every answer. You become less predictable, and that creates curiosity. But here's the part most people miss. It isn't simply your silence that can pull his attention back. It is what your silence communicates about you. It can say, I'm not begging. I'm not sitting around waiting. I'm moving forward with my life. And that message can be powerful. So if you've ever wondered why he walked away, why he suddenly returned, or what he might actually be looking for when he comes back, stay with me, because this is where the pattern starts to make sense. And by the end, you'll understand something even more important. This isn't really about learning how to get him back. It's about learning why you never needed to chase him in the first place. And trust me, the next part changes everything. The moment you choose no contact, something important begins to happen. Not only between you and him, but inside you. Many people think no contact simply means ignoring messages, refusing calls, or staying quiet so the other person will become curious. But that is only the surface. Real no contact is much deeper. It is a psychological reset. It breaks a pattern that he may have become comfortable with. Maybe he was used to you always answering. Maybe he knew you would eventually reach out after an argument. Maybe he expected you to explain your feelings, check on him, or try one more time to repair everything. Then suddenly, you stop. You are no longer always available. You are no longer emotionally standing at the same door, waiting for him to decide what he wants. And that change can be felt. At first, he might not react at all. He may even feel relieved. He may enjoy the space and tell himself that everything is fine. He may keep himself busy, go out, talk to friends, focus on work, or distract himself with other things. But silence has a strange way of becoming louder with time. What felt like freedom in the beginning can eventually become a question in his mind. Why isn't she reaching out? Why hasn't she checked on me? Has she moved on? Does she still care? What is happening in her life now? And suddenly, the version of you he thought he understood no longer feels so predictable. This is where many people make a mistake. They think the goal is to create anxiety in someone else. It isn't. The real purpose is to stop abandoning yourself just to keep someone close. No contact is not punishment. It is space. It is distance from the emotional cycle. It gives you room to breathe, think, and see the relationship without constantly reacting to every little thing he does. And once you stop trying to control his response, something inside you begins to change too. That absence can create a space where reflection finally begins. He may start thinking about the relationship differently because your constant presence is no longer there to interrupt those thoughts. When you were always available, he could assume the connection would still be there tomorrow. He didn't have to fully confront what he was losing because you were still answering, still checking in, still explaining, still showing that you cared. But when that access disappears, The mind can start filling the empty space with memories. And memory is not always logical. It is emotional. People often remember moments based on how those moments made them feel. So instead of remembering every disagreement, every difficult conversation, or every reason things became complicated, he may begin remembering the emotional highlights. The way you listened when he needed someone, the way you encouraged him, the way you made him feel understood. The small moments that seemed ordinary at the time can suddenly feel much more important when they are no longer happening. This is one reason distance can change someone's perspective. When you are constantly present, people can become focused on what is happening right now. When you are gone, they may begin looking backward. They may compare the present with what they had before, and sometimes that comparison creates regret. But don't misunderstand this. It does not mean every man will come back, and it does not mean silence is a guaranteed way to make someone love you. Human emotions are not a formula. What it does mean is that removing yourself from a constant emotional cycle can give both people the space to understand what the relationship actually meant. And here's something you really need to remember. His return is not automatically proof that he has changed. Sometimes people miss access, comfort, attention, or familiarity without being ready to build something healthier. That distinction matters more than the return itself. So don't just ask, why is he back? Ask, what is he bringing back with him? There is another reason this can seem so confusing. Men and women can process emotional loss differently, but every person is different, so there is no single timeline that applies to everyone. One person may feel everything immediately, another may push the feelings away until later. You might spend the first few days crying, thinking, journaling, replaying conversations, and trying to understand what happened. Meanwhile, he may appear completely fine. He may post normally, he may laugh with friends, he may continue his routine as if nothing changed. And that can hurt, because you start thinking, how can he not care? But what you see on the outside does not always tell you what is happening internally. Some people process emotions by confronting them. Others process by avoiding them. Some people need silence before they can recognize what they feel. Others understand their emotions immediately. So when someone eventually reaches out weeks or even months later, it can feel like it came from nowhere. But for them, the emotional process may have been happening slowly in the background. The important thing is not to build your entire hope around that possibility. Your healing cannot depend on whether he eventually realizes your value. You have to become your own priority long before anyone else decides to recognize what they lost. And this is where no contact becomes much more powerful. It stops being a strategy designed to make him miss you and becomes a decision designed to help you find yourself again. You get your attention back. You get your time back. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You stop wondering what his latest post means. You stop creating stories from small signals. Slowly, the emotional noise becomes quieter. And in that quiet, you begin remembering who you were before the relationship consumed so much of your attention. The biggest transformation often happens here. You begin rebuilding your self-worth without needing someone else to confirm it. You start realizing that your value was never created by his attention, his messages, his affection, or his decision to stay. Those things can feel wonderful, but they do not determine your worth. When you stop chasing someone, you are not automatically becoming more valuable because they might miss you. You are becoming stronger because you are no longer placing your emotional stability in someone else's hands. That difference is everything. You begin making plans again. You spend time with people who make you feel alive. You focus on your goals. You take care of yourself. You laugh without wondering whether he would like your laugh. You go somewhere without secretly hoping he will see it. You start living because you want to live, not because you want someone to notice that you're doing well. And that is the energy people often notice. Not desperation disguised as confidence. Not pretending to be busy. Not posting pictures just to create jealousy. Real independence. Real movement. Real emotional growth. There is a huge difference between becoming silent because you want him to chase you and becoming quiet because you finally understand that chasing someone is exhausting you. One is a strategy, the other is self-respect. And people can often feel that difference. When you genuinely stop needing someone to validate you, your behavior changes naturally. You don't have to force yourself not to text. You simply don't feel the same urge anymore. You don't need to prove that you're okay. You actually begin becoming okay. And if he comes back, you are no longer standing in the same emotional position where he left you. You can look at the situation with clearer eyes. You can ask better questions. You can decide whether his presence actually belongs in your future, instead of simply celebrating the fact that he returned. And that is the real power of stepping back. It doesn't give you control over him, it gives you control over yourself. So if he comes back after you pulled away, don't rush to give him the same version of you he had before. Pause, breathe, observe, listen to what he says, but pay even more attention to what he does. Is he taking responsibility for what happened? Is he communicating more clearly? Is he making consistent effort? Is he willing to address the problems that caused the distance? Or is he simply lonely and looking for the comfort he remembers? Those questions matter because someone missing you and someone being ready for you are not always the same thing. Someone can miss your presence and still be unable to give you the relationship you deserve. Someone can regret losing you and still repeat the same behavior that pushed you away. So don't let his return automatically erase the reasons you left. Remember what you learned while he was gone. Remember how much peace you gained when you stopped chasing. Remember how much energy you recovered when you stopped waiting for someone else to choose you. That is the version of yourself you need to protect. If he truly wants another chance, let his actions speak over time. You don't need to interrogate him. You don't need to convince him. You don't need to prove that you're worth loving. Let consistency answer the question. Let effort answer the question. Let respect answer the question. And if he cannot provide those things, then his return may simply be another lesson in recognizing what you no longer want. Because the goal was never to make him desperate for you. The goal was to stop being desperate for his attention. That is the shift. That is where your power comes from. And once you understand that, his silence no longer controls you. His return no longer controls you. And his decision to stay or leave no longer defines you. You finally realize that you were never trying to win him. You were trying to come back to yourself. And maybe that is the part nobody tells you. Sometimes the person who comes back is not the prize. Sometimes the real victory is the woman you become while they are gone. The woman who stops begging for clarity. The woman who stops accepting half effort. The woman who no longer confuses inconsistency with mystery or distance with love. The woman who understands that healthy love should not require constant chasing to keep it alive. When you reach that point, something changes in the way you see relationships. You don't ask, how can I make him miss me? You ask, does this connection make my life better? You don't ask, what can I do to make him choose me? You ask, is he showing me that he deserves a place in my life? Those questions come from a completely different place. They come from self-respect instead of fear. And that is why your silence can sometimes speak so loudly. Not because silence is a weapon, not because ignoring someone magically creates love, but because stepping back reveals what happens when you stop carrying the entire connection by yourself. If he reaches for you, you can observe. If he doesn't, you keep moving. Either way, you win something valuable. Clarity. So never confuse his return with your worth. Your worth existed before he arrived, and it will remain long after he leaves. Your absence may make someone realize what they had, but your growth is what makes you realize what you deserve. And once you understand that, you stop chasing people who are unsure about you. You stop begging for attention that should be given freely. You stop shrinking yourself just to keep someone interested. You become comfortable with walking away from anything that repeatedly makes you question your value. And that is when silence stops being about him. It becomes about you, your peace, your standards, your future, your life. And honestly, that is the part that changes everything. It allows you to move from reacting to thinking. It teaches you something you may have forgotten. Your value was never determined by whether someone chose you. Your real value comes from choosing yourself first. And that shift in energy can be felt even from far away. When you stop holding on so tightly, stop trying to fix everything, stop explaining every feeling, and stop forcing a connection to work, something changes inside you. Detachment can become powerful because you are no longer acting from fear. You are no longer desperately trying to keep someone interested. You become calmer, more grounded, more certain of yourself. And that kind of confidence is very different from pretending not to care. It comes from genuinely knowing that you will be okay whether he stays or walks away. But here is where things get interesting. When you become quiet, the entire dynamic can change. You are no longer behaving in the way he expected. You are not responding to every emotional trigger. You are not appearing every time he reaches for attention. You are no longer playing the same role he became comfortable with. And suddenly, questions can begin forming in his mind. Did she move on? Is she happier now? Does she still think about me? Why hasn't she reached out? Did she finally stop caring? Those questions can become difficult to ignore, especially if he believed you would always be there waiting for him. And the more he searches for answers, the more he may begin feeling something he never expected to feel so strongly. Regret. Not only regret over losing you, but regret over assuming you would always remain available. That is one of the deeper effects of stepping away. You can move in his mind from someone he could easily access to someone he is no longer sure he can reach again. And that uncertainty can change the way he sees the entire connection. So if you're sitting in no contact, wondering whether he thinks about you, remember this: silence is not always empty. Sometimes it creates space for thoughts that your constant presence never allowed him to have. Every day you stay focused on yourself, you are changing the story he once had about you. You are no longer the woman who waited endlessly. You become the woman who chose peace and walked away with dignity. And believe me, that difference can stay in someone's mind for a very long time. When a man begins missing you, it is usually not because of one picture you posted or because of how you looked when you walked away. Something deeper can be happening. He may be remembering how he felt around you. Real longing is often connected to emotion, not appearance. And once you understand the emotional experiences that can make someone miss you, you realize something important. The goal is not to become impossible to forget. The deeper goal is to have a connection that meant something emotionally. One powerful trigger can be familiarity mixed with peace. If being around you gave him a sense that he could relax, speak openly, or simply be himself without constantly feeling judged, those memories can stay with him. Maybe you noticed his mood before he said anything. Maybe you knew when he was stressed and changed your tone without making a big deal about it. Maybe you listened when he needed to talk, even when he struggled to explain what was wrong. You may have thought those little things were invisible, but emotional safety can leave a strong impression. People often understand the value of peace after they no longer have it. Once he walks away, he returns to the noise of everyday life. Work, stress, expectations, problems, conversations that feel shallow, and slowly he may remember how different it felt when he was with you. That contrast can become powerful. It is not necessarily that you were perfect. It is that your presence created an emotional experience that became familiar. And when that experience disappears, the difference can become easier to notice. This is why the small things can matter more than you realize. The moments you thought were ordinary may become the memories he returns to later. And if you want to understand why someone can miss you long after leaving, pay attention to this part. People do not always miss a person in a simple way. Sometimes they miss who they were when they were around that person. They miss the version of themselves that felt understood, supported, calm, or accepted. And that is a much deeper kind of memory. Another powerful emotional trigger is admiration. Not empty praise, not constantly telling him that he is amazing just to keep his attention. Genuine admiration is different. It means seeing someone's effort, recognizing their goals, respecting what they are trying to build, and noticing qualities in them that other people may overlook. If he felt that you believed in him, especially during moments when he doubted himself, that experience can stay in his memory. Maybe you encouraged an idea he was afraid to pursue. Maybe you noticed his progress when everyone else focused on his mistakes. Maybe you made him feel capable when he was questioning himself. Those moments can carry more weight than dramatic declarations of love. Because when someone feels genuinely understood and respected, they often remember the person who gave them that experience. And when that person is gone, the absence can create a gap. He can fill his schedule. He can meet new people. He can distract himself. But distraction does not always replace emotional connection. He may act completely fine on the outside, while still remembering the way you made him feel about himself. That is why admiration is so different from flattery. Flattery tries to get something. Genuine admiration simply recognizes something real. And when a man loses someone who sincerely believed in him, he may eventually realize that what he lost was not just companionship. He lost a person who saw something in him that he may not have fully recognized himself. That realization can hit much later. And here is the part you should remember. You should never make yourself smaller just to become someone's emotional support system. You can believe in someone without losing yourself in them. You can encourage someone without carrying their entire life. The healthiest connection is not about one person constantly lifting the other. It is about two people bringing their own strength into the relationship. So if he remembers your admiration, let him remember it. But don't go back to giving endlessly just because he finally notices what you once gave freely. Your energy deserves to be respected, not simply remembered. Then there is emotional contrast, and this one can be surprisingly powerful. Maybe your presence brought something different into his routine. You brought humor when life felt heavy. You brought warmth when he became distant. You added spontaneity to a life that had become predictable. You brought softness into moments when he was tense or guarded. Those differences can become part of what makes a connection feel unique. He may remember the way you laughed at his silly jokes, the way your mood could change the atmosphere in a room, the way you could make an ordinary evening feel meaningful without doing anything extraordinary. He may even remember the comfortable silence between you, the moments when neither of you needed to say much because the connection itself carried the conversation. These details can become surprisingly vivid after someone is gone. And when he meets someone new, he may discover that emotional chemistry does not simply transfer from one person to another. Every connection has its own rhythm. Every person brings a different energy. Every relationship creates different memories. You cannot copy one emotional bond and paste it into another relationship. That is why replacing someone is not as simple as finding another person who looks better, talks differently, or offers more attention. Emotional connection is built through countless small moments. The jokes only the two of you understood, the looks across a room, the conversations late at night, the moments of support nobody else saw, the strange little habits that once seemed insignificant. When those things disappear, the absence can become noticeable. And this is where many people misunderstand what missing someone really means. It does not always mean the person wants to recreate the relationship exactly as it was. Sometimes it means they finally recognize that something unique existed there, something they cannot simply recreate on demand. And if he reaches that realization, you do not need to rush toward him. You do not need to prove that the connection was special. If it mattered, the memories will speak for themselves. Then there is mystery. And this is something many people completely underestimate. When you stop explaining every thought, every feeling, every decision, you create room for the other person to wonder. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to play games. You simply stop giving constant access to your inner world. If he was used to knowing what you were thinking, where you were, how you felt, and what you planned to do next, your sudden calmness can feel different. He may begin wondering, what changed? Is she still thinking about me? Has she met someone else? Is she happier? Did she finally let go? Why isn't she reacting anymore? And when someone cannot easily predict your next move, curiosity can grow. This does not mean you should intentionally confuse someone. It means you stop making yourself completely available to a person who is not giving you the same level of effort. There is a major difference. One is manipulation, the other is boundaries. If you are always explaining yourself, chasing clarity, sending another message, asking another question, or trying to repair every uncomfortable moment, the other person never has to sit with the consequences of their behavior. You keep filling the silence for them. But when you become quiet, they may finally have to sit with their own thoughts. And that can be uncomfortable, especially if they expected you to react the same way you always did. Suddenly, the woman they thought they understood becomes harder to predict. Not because she is playing a game, but because she has stopped performing the emotional role they expected from her. And that shift can be powerful. He may begin missing not only the version of you he knew, but the deeper parts of you he never took enough time to understand. That is why silence can reveal things that endless conversations sometimes cannot. Sometimes people only recognize what they had after they no longer have immediate access to it. And finally, there is one of the strongest emotional triggers of all: presence. Not simply being physically nearby, but being emotionally present. Think about the moments when you showed up for him when things were difficult, not just when everything was easy. Maybe you listened when he had a bad day. Maybe you supported him when he felt uncertain. Maybe you remembered small details he had forgotten he even told you. Maybe you were there when he needed someone to understand him without forcing him to explain everything perfectly. Those moments create emotional memories, and people can miss emotional presence in a way they cannot always explain. At first, he may not recognize what is missing. He may simply feel that something is different. The days continue, his routine continues,